Welcome to the Resilient Mindset Podcast, an exciting new podcast by Resilience Queen, Justine Martin. Justine is the owner and founder of the Resilient Mindset, a division of the Justine Martin Corporation. Justine draws on her years of experience and knowledge consulting with clients to develop and sustain a positive mindset. Focused on igniting your passion, purpose and power, follow the Resilience Queen each week as she delves into the mind of her guests, exploring fascinating stories and inspiring journeys. With over 11 years public speaking expertise, Justine thrives on delivering a powerful and empowering keynote to audiences of all sizes. From a packed room of 500 people to an intimate gathering of 50 people, Justine will command the room with her inspiring journey and engaging anecdotes. Email hello@justinemartin.com.au to book Justine for your next event.
Welcome back, listeners. Today I've got Tony McManus. He is a sought-after mental health and wellbeing speaker at all levels of the community across Southeast Australia. He was the first independent chairman of a Headspace local consortium across the 100-plus Headspace centres across Australia and established the Headspace Geelong Fund. He focuses on identifying strategic mutual benefits and win-win outcomes. He was also an active supporter of the establishment of the Lara District Community Bank. After selling his Lara-based real estate business, Tony has been passionately promoting the mental health solution of social connection through mentoring and volunteering via his Facebook page, Connect to Grow. He passionately believes that the best exercise that you can do is to help someone who is down to get up again. Volunteer tourism projects have taken him to Papua New Guinea and remote Australian Indigenous communities. After his brother Mick took his own life, a passion in helping others deal with mental health issues began and has resulted in, among other things, the successful lobbying of the Geelong and Hawthorn football clubs to play annually for the AFL Beyond Blue Cup as a vehicle to promote awareness and reduce stigma in the community about depression. He has presented to the Western Bulldogs Sons of the West Men's Health Project. He is a national ambassador for Beyond Blue and is a community ambassador for Are You OK? His work has been reported in the Sunday Age, the Sun Herald, ABC TV and radio, and a number of times in the Geelong Advertiser. He is a regular guest on 93.9 Bay FM and was a nominee for the inaugural Australian Mental Health Prize for 2016. Tony is also a member of the CEO Institute, certified CEO, and a member of Rotary. In 2021, he was appointed as the lived experience member of the CHIME Change to Mental Health research partnership between Deakin University and Barwon Health. He currently also works as the development manager of the Geelong Community Foundation. Welcome, Tony. What an impressive bio.
Thanks, Justine. You just about put me to sleep reading all that. So, but I suppose we've got to give your listeners a little bit of background.
That we do. I was going to cut it short and I thought, no, there's too much relevant information in there to cut it short. And what bits do I cut out?
Oh, good job.
So let's get into it. What does resilience mean to you, Tony?
For me, it's the ability to bounce back from difficult situations, whether it's by yourself or with the help of others. I think a lot of times people think you just got to do it yourself, but my experience is if you're down and you're struggling, you really have to get over the inclination not to reach out and make sure you do.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great definition, and how quickly you bounce back as well from the adversities that you're facing. And not all of us can do it by ourselves. I mean, I see a counsellor regularly and have done so for the last 8 years. And, I'm not ashamed to say it. And I didn't want to burden my family and my friends with what I go through on a daily basis. So I outsourced it. And I feel quite comfortable in talking to her and, pouring it all out. And then I'm reset for the next week or the next fortnight and go for it. So, yeah, it's very important. So, Tony, what adversities have you faced and how did you draw on your resilience to cope?
Well, I suppose for me, it's almost what I call the perfect storm of a midlife crisis with a touch of Murphy's Law. Old Murphy's Law, something can go wrong.
Oh, I know. I know Murphy.
Yeah, so kind of it's a bit of that. So one of my brothers who was working with me, as you mentioned before, in my real estate business, he took his own life. And at the time that happened, I was pretty well burnt out myself and became suicidal. I don't quite remember the exact timelines, whether it's before or after his suicide, but it was definitely a phase I went through. I felt I was trapped in my business, and there's too much of a focus on income generation because I had a high level of debt, and also what I perceived I needed to fund in terms of a lifestyle for my family. So it was kind of the old head down, bottom up, let's make a lot of money, but it did come at a cost eventually. So it's probably in hindsight that I was able to cope by realising that being vulnerable and asking for help was actually a way of developing resilience. I didn't see it up front. It's kind of more a looking back observation. And embracing change was a very important part of my recovery. So after an eventual divorce where I end up with half my assets, I'm happy to say I was twice as happy. So so that probably summarises my approach where, money is not so important to me now. It probably helps that my kids are off my hands and, they're leading independent lives. And my partner of 8 years, Kath, we just really enjoy the simple things. So, there's less need to earn money. We've got a roof over our head, and the simple things is what generates a lot of
happiness.
I suppose just at ease, at peace.
So the stress isn't there.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stress
and
and
that's
anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can remove the stress out of your life, geez, your life takes on a better meaning.
Well, for me, it took away the clutter, the fuzz, the stuff that was impacting on my ability to function.
And if you're under stress all the time, you don't actually realise that you're under stress. So, a little stress here, a little stress there, and then all of a sudden there's a lot of stress here and a lot of stress there, and that's just become a way of life. And then that impacts on not only your mental health, but your physical health as well. So, you mentioned something about, you've changed things and that like modifying helps with resilience. You don't give up, you modify.
Yeah, absolutely. But change is something hard for people to cope with. And you've only got to look at the last couple of years with the virus, dare I say, where there's
the C word, the other C word.
The certain lifestyle we all experienced, and then the world has totally turned on its head. And so we had to change how we did things. And some people who resisted change, didn't want to change, probably really struggled. But for a lot of people, it created absolute opportunities. And I suppose even in my situation, I went from working 3 days a week to 4 days a week at the Community Foundation. And I also picked up an extra role on my Fridays with the work I do on construction sites, supporting tradies dealing with mental health issues. And so it kept me going. So the reality was 4 days a week I was working from home because of the virus. But on the fifth day, because I was in the construction industry, I was able to get out and about and have a bit of social connection on construction sites. That really helped me get through.
That's good. I did lots of Zoom art classes. So I offered free Zoom classes that all these people would join in, and we chat every week, and we built a little community that way. So because there was quite a lot of us that didn't have partners and that we were stuck at home by ourselves. So, to reach out, and I'm so grateful that we're in modern technology, that we do have the opportunity, that we do have FaceTime or Zoom or team meetings, and that we can still do all of that. So extremely important when you are by yourself. And we were never meant to be solo creatures. We're meant to be around others. And I think being solo really then starts playing on your mind and your mental health.
It's not good. It's probably when I speak about mental health stuff, that's really my niche, dealing with isolation, loneliness and disconnection. And I offer the solution of social connection through volunteering and mentoring. And that's a lot of what I talk about under that banner, Connect to Grow, or whenever I have the opportunity to speak to either corporate or community groups.
That's awesome. That, you know, it's fantastic to know that there are people like you in the community, Tony, that are aware of the importance of it and are educating other people around that subject. So have you faced any other adversities?
Yeah, that's probably the main ones. Marriage breakup and being burnt out and dealing with mental health issues. It's really hard to think of other stuff.
Let's talk about you being burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
What external help did you seek for that?
Well, I found it was really hard to engage with family because of what had happened to my brother. I didn't want to let them think, oh, God, there's another one. So I found the external help was probably in the first instance my friends, some good mates who had been through similar stuff. So with those guys, you could put absolutely everything on the table and not be afraid to talk about it, whereas within the family dimension, it was more very filtered and not really putting it all out there. Then, of course, there's professional help. You've got to, in the first instance, generally share with your GP what's going on. GPs will refer you to a psychologist possibly or a psychiatrist. And in my case, probably over a period of 10 years or so, I had 4 referrals to psychologists for under mental health plans, but I found that I only need 3 or 4 sessions, and that tended to put me back on the right track. But even professionally, when I was really struggling, I've got an accounting degree, and I've run my own business for years, but I was that wound up and anxious and stressed, whatever you want to describe it as. I just lost the confidence and the awareness of what was going on financially. And without looking at it, I just presumed it was bad, where it was essentially only a cash flow problem. But because I couldn't see the wood for the trees, Or
do you think you did the whole ostrich in the sand thing? And
in the finances, I think, and probably not totally, but that's not a bad analogy. And then eventually, it becomes overwhelming when you look at the reality of something. But the reality was, it wasn't that big a problem.
Well, you don't look at the problem. You don't look at it because you don't want to know about it, and then you escalate it more in your mind, and that molehill is actually now in your mind a mountain.
Yes.
When it could, just stop with a phone call or seeking external help to get someone to look at your books or whatever the issue is that you're facing. So pride gets in the way a lot as well.
Pride, ego, all those things. But the reality was, when you're struggling mentally, you don't see things right. So it's hard to fix things when you're in that phase. So you definitely have to reach out and ask for help.
And your GP is a really good place. And you don't have to have money either. This is, we live in an amazing society here in Australia where we do have mental health care plans. So you can go to your GP. There are organisations that you can pick up the phone, like Beyond Blue, like Lifeline, and we'll pop those numbers in your bio as well, Tony, and for people to reach out to that. You can pick up the phone and you can seek external help that way, and they don't even have to see you. They can help you.
Telehealth has become more prominent, particularly in the last few years. But I think the problem in the first instance is you can be so overwhelmed. There's that many options. You can't make a decision as to where to go.
I think you just pick up the phone and call one.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But, just from what I've heard in terms of feedback, it's like, where do I start? Who do I talk to? Particularly like talking to guys on construction sites, 9 out of 10 don't realise that you can actually talk to your GP about this stuff.
That's right. Your GP should be your first port of call for everything health related, mentally and physically.
100%. Yeah, because when you think about it, your health is physical as well as mental, whereas I think traditionally we think the GP for physical health.
No, definitely mental health there with your GP as well, and just having regular checkups. I mean, people will go for years and years and years without seeing the doctor, but that doesn't mean that they're actually healthy.
Yep.
So, getting regular blood tests done every 6 months, 12 months, and having, your heart listened to and your blood pressure taken, that can save you a lot of adversity, in the long run if something's picked up early.
I call that preventative maintenance.
That's exactly right. Yes. You know, I went to a GP back in 2016 and was going purple, and she told me to come back in 4 months if it was still happening. Now, no one knows your body like you do yourself. No one on the planet does. And I wasn't happy with what she said, so I sought a different opinion. So don't ever be afraid when, you know, is your GP you're not connecting with or you're not liking what they say. We have the right to go and get a second opinion or a third opinion if they're not listening
point.
to you.
You know your body well, but sometimes there's a tendency to ignore symptoms and just put up with it.
Yeah.
And
you shouldn't.
Yeah, without, say going to a GP just because you got a runny nose, but more if you've got an ongoing ache somewhere or muscle problem, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's your body telling you something, so you can't ignore it. And hopefully, if you get in early, you might be able to.
That's right. That's right. Well, mine actually missed me having 3 primary cancers at once. So that was a big hoo-ha.
Yeah, so that's a really good message too. A second opinion, and probably an important message from a mental health perspective too is that if either your GP or say a psychologist, psychiatrist, counsellor that you've been referred to, if you don't click with them, don't be afraid to ask for a referral to another one, because they're only human too. And although having said that, just reflecting, there's a shortage out there. So
there is
waiting lists and so on. So, but there are plenty of options. Online counselling, for instance, where I do the construction worker support, they have telephone counselling services available. So you can get onto them pretty readily. So even if your preferred psychologist is tied up for a few months, an interim thing can be talking to a lifeline or talking to telephone counselling services associated with your workplace.
Yeah, and it doesn't actually have to be a psychologist either. I mean, there's plenty of registered counsellors as well. I went to a registered counsellor for 8 years and then had something a little bit more complex that needed to be dealt with, and again was outside of their scope, so then sought someone else out who was a psychologist, and then went to them for a period of time and then went back to my regular counsellor. And it doesn't hurt to do that. If you think that you're not getting somewhere with one, you can swap over. Again, that's the beauty about living in Australia, that we can do that. You just have to be prepared sometimes to wait a little bit to get into these people. But anyone who's listening to this and who's young and doesn't know what career path to go down to, psychology, because there's a huge need.
Lots of demand, not enough providers, so get into it.
Yeah, exactly. There's a tip from Tony and Justine today on that one. So, Tony, who are your role models in resilience and how do they inspire you?
Yeah, I've got a few points here, and we may not have mentioned yet, but we're having a chat on Anzac Day. So Anzac Day really made me reflect this morning about and kind of remind myself about the interest that I have in Australia's military history. So I enjoy reading about it, learning about it, and importantly, visiting places where Australians have fought overseas. So that kind of interest has led me to go to Kokoda, Gallipoli, the Western battlefields in France. And there's so many examples of resilience in Australia's military history. Just a visit to the shrine or the Australian War Memorial, it's well worth a visit. And it's even as obscure as that interest. I live in Bacchus Marsh, and we've got this beautiful Avenue of Honour where every tree along the Avenue of Honour has got a little brass plaque about the soldier that the tree was planted in memory of a bit over 100 years ago. And each one of those plaques, there's a story. You tend to look at the Victoria Cross winners and what they've done, but basically, some of the ones that jump out to me from military history is what Weary Dunlop did during World War II, where he was a surgeon in prison on the Burma Thai Railway project. And the work he did to help a lot of the other guys who were malnutritioned and treated poorly to survive was outstanding. Another name not many people have heard about, the guy called Pompey Elliot. He was a commander in World War One who had an issue with mental health probably throughout his life. And unfortunately, after coming back from World War One, he eventually took his life. And a lot of that was due to the regret about sending guys to their death in the battlefields of France. So I don't know how resilient that was, but just at the time when you're leading soldiers and you've got to command them, and unfortunately you're sending them to their death, there's got to be some kind of internal fortitude that puts you in a position to do that. But he had the compassion too. I've also become friends with an amazing fellow by the name of Manus Angelos. Now, Manus was the fellow who worked out from his own private research where there was 200 lost diggers buried after the battlefield, or in the battlefield after the fight at Fromelles in World War One. And he did all this research, and he kind of worked out exactly on the map where it was. So he goes to the Australian War, the Defence Department or the Department of Veteran Affairs, and goes, this is where I think these guys are buried. And he got fobbed off. They didn't want to engage with him. Who are you?
He went there, didn't he?
He went and researched in Germany, and he got to know the local villages, and did all the research and put it on a plate. And eventually, just through him annoying them and persisting, and what I'd say being resilient, he's kind of dragged the Defence Department along by the scruff of the neck, and bugger me dead, where he said they would be buried, where they were buried. Yeah. And so I've met him and had coffee with him, and for the last 2 Julys, I was supposed to be in the battlefields of the north of France with him doing a battlefield tour, but that obviously got cancelled because of.
So, did you have any family members serve in any of the wars?
A great uncle on Dad's side was up in New Guinea. On Mum's side, she's Dutch. My granddad on that side, he was in the Dutch army, and they got overrun in about 3 days by the Germans, and he was a prisoner of war, and he was lucky that he was a baker, that he was able to provide an essential service. And so no direct one. So having said that, at a place called VC Corner in Fromelles, there's 2 McManus brothers listed as killed in the Battle of Fromelles, and I think on the same day or within a day or two. And I did track down that they were used to live in South Melbourne, but not a direct relation that I know of.
Well, I had 13 family members serve.
Wow.
So Anzac Day, is very special to me. And so my nana, my mum's mum, she was in the army. And my mum's dad was a flight sergeant in the Catalina as one of the gunners.
The old flying boat.
Yeah. And his brother was Air Force as well. And then my dad's mum was an ambulance driver in the army. And my dad's dad was at Raditterbrook and also did Kokoda. And he got a soldier settlement out at Teesdale when he came back. And he had about 3 or 4 brothers that served as well, all in the army. And then I had a couple of uncles that enlisted. And then my son's father's ex-Navy. I've got a stepdaughter in the army. My brother was Army. He did 7-8 years. And then my son is ex-Army, and he was medically discharged a couple of years ago from the Army. So we've got a long history when it comes to...
I was going to say, you win that one.
Yeah.
There's...
I don't think it's a competition. I think, what you're actually doing and preserving history and going and visiting these places is, that's resilience in itself. And to not let it be forgotten is huge.
Yeah. So that's kind of crosses over just an interest. So that gives me destinations to want to travel to, on the bucket list side of things. So it really works. And I found in terms of engaging with others, it's a great conversation piece that is a lot of people have that similar conversation that you just shared where family members. So it gives you that extra thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And probably of recent times, in terms of role models, I've come across a bloke who I've met a few times called Hugh Van Cuylenberg. And Hugh runs an organisation called the Resilience Project. And his theory is based on GEM, G-E-M, which is short for gratitude, empathy and mindfulness. And I love the way he just does great storytelling in public talks, podcasts, books, promoting resilience building. And importantly, a lot of what he does is via schools and sporting clubs. So, I take my hat off to the great work that Hugh's been doing. And I had the privilege of presenting with him a few times. So when you cross paths with someone, you tend to keep a bit of an eye on them. And he's just gone gangbusters in the last few years with the work that he does in the space of resilience. So
he's got some great books. I've read his books. Yeah, definitely.
And the way he gets the message across his storytelling, it's fantastic.
And that's the thing, like when you do storytelling, people can relate to it. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I can relate to that because I did this or I did that. So,
correct, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. No, he's a great role model to have in your life, as all of them are that you've mentioned, Tony. So we've crossed on a couple of your passions. Any other passions in your life?
Well, I suppose, so we did touch on, but fundamentally helping others. Like my personal motto is the best exercise you can do is to help someone else who's down to get up again. And it's really a positive driving thing for me. And I'm really grateful at the moment that my main job at Geelong Community Foundation and then the part-time work I do as supporting tradies on construction sites, it helps me to kind of do that. And so it's I think it's part of being happier nowadays because I'm doing something I'm a bit passionate about. And if you can work in this place where you're a bit passionate, that's really outstanding.
It is.
Outside of work, I just enjoy a fairly relaxed and simple lifestyle nowadays. As I touched on earlier with my partner, Kath, we like having unplanned exploring across regional Victoria or into metropolitan Melbourne. And it's fantastic way. You don't have to organise it. You just jump in the car, are we going east, west or north? A lot of what we do is based on the weather. Yeah. And be remiss not to acknowledge the growth and what I call the individuality of my daughters. I've got two daughters and they're very different people, but just to see them evolve. Although I should say I've gone from 2 to 4 with a partner.
Their partners?
Yeah, 2 daughters as part of that deal too. So we're a little bit of the Brady Bunch.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. Yeah. And you mentioned you've got a grandchild?
Yes. Laken James Hawkins. He's a little ripper. He's about 4 months old and just at that really nice, engaging age now. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And don't they make you smile?
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's nothing like the love of a grandchild. I mean, kids, yes, but you're always so stressed in. You don't know if you're doing the right thing when you've got kids, and then when you have grandchildren, it's on another plane altogether. And you wait till he calls. Are you a pop or a pa, Tony?
I'm a Gramps.
A Gramps.
Which can become Grumps depending on the mood.
I'm to 3 of them I'm Nana, and then the other 3 I'm Nanny. So
okay, beautiful.
Yeah, and when the 3-year-old, well, he's just about to turn 3, he came to the back door the other week and he goes, "Hello, my nanny," and I'm like, "Oh, my ovaries!" It's so cute. That's my passion. That's what gets me out of bed every day is those kids. So now I've got a couple of quick questions for you, Tony, today.
Yep.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Only if it's a Hawaiian.
Right. Nice answer. Tea, coffee or hot chocolate or wine?
Coffee AM, wine PM.
Red or white?
Red.
How do you have your coffee?
Cappuccino.
Sugar?
No.
All right. Favourite AFL team?
Pussycats.
Cat supporter. What's your favourite music?
Anything from the 80s.
Oh, me too, but I particularly like big hair bands. Head banging stuff. Your favourite food, Tony?
Probably Chinese.
Nice.
The variety. I've been sport over the years. Had a few sessions at the Flower Drum, so that sets a pretty high benchmark in terms of that type of cuisine.
Does. I have a thing about Chinese, since we're doing a bit of storytelling. I was morbidly obese, so I was about 46 kilos heavier than what I am now, and I used to eat a lot of Chinese, and I read a book that was about don't eating your feelings, so don't eat your feelings, and then worked out that the reason why I was eating a lot of Chinese was because it was the last meal that my parents and my brother and I ever sat down and ate. So my parents divorced when I was 9, and I can remember going to Chinese restaurants as, a special treat out with them. And then my dad came to visit when I was about 16 and visit my mum and my brother and I, and we went out for Chinese. So when I feel like I need Chinese or I want to eat Chinese, I don't. I just need a hug. I just need a hug. And that was a game changer. And hot jam ball donuts are another one for me as well, because my nan used to give them to me when I was upset. So, again, that feeling and food associated together. So,
well, being a long-term Geelong supporter, I'd catch a train in from Lara, go to Cardinia Park, watch the footy.
Yeah.
Part of the routine on the way home was you go down the Mallet Street to the old Teen Noir Cafe.
Oh, they made the best spring rolls.
Yeah, get some dimmies on the way home. And you know what that place is now?
Which one is it? Is that the piano bar now?
Correct. Yeah. So it's I've gone from a kid having dimmies on the way home there to occasionally not acting my age at the piano bar.
So for listeners that are unfamiliar with Geelong's piano bar, it is the most epic place, and people dance on the tables and dance on the chairs. Even if you haven't had a drink, you still are inclined to get up there, and they have lots of cabaret shows and drag shows, and it's a really cool, funky place. So
they need to share that for what they did during the pandemic too, where they did live casting or video.
Yeah, they did.
Streaming.
They streamed. They live streamed their performances.
So that was significant, I think, for helping a lot of people cope with the pandemic. Hats off to them for that.
Yeah, definitely. And there you go again, like what we spoke about at the beginning, about some businesses, adapted and modified, and others didn't look outside that box that they're in. So my last question, does the toilet paper go forwards or backwards, Tony?
Oh, I don't have a real lot of interest, but the females in my house make it go forward.
Awesome. I like the females in your house. Okay, so how can people contact you, Tony?
Mobile phone number, happy to take calls on that, 0417 33 4434. I've got a website, McManusConsultingServices.com.au, or if anyone wants to have a chat about the work that we do at the Geelong Community Foundation, that's geelongcommunityfoundation.org. And also I've got a Facebook page called Connect to Grow, that's trying to give a subtle plug over my shoulder there. That's where I'll do a bit of storytelling about organisations that I've either volunteered with or that others have recommended, and in trying to encourage people to do that social connection through volunteering things. So you'll get me via one of those channels.
Awesome. And volunteering is really important. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. To me, it becomes a win-win situation. You get a tick for your self-esteem and resilience and mental health by going down the path of social connection. But what you will achieve as an outcome is a huge amount of gratitude for where you're at and empathy. And it's very helpful. So it's kind of a way of doing what Hugh says at the Resilience Project, of practicing gratitude, empathy and mindfulness.
Yeah, that's right. I volunteer quite a lot as well, Tony, and not for me, but for the others. And, I volunteer on the Consumer Advisory Committee for the board at Barwon Health, and to help improve, patient care and so people have, a better experience at the hospital, and making sure that, because I have to use the services at the hospital for a very long time still to come, that I don't experience anything that I have in the past up there in a negative way. Well, Tony, it's been great having you today on the Resilience Mindset podcast.
Thanks for the chance to have you on, and keep up the good work. Oh, I forgot one of my other role models, number 4 I threw in, Justine Martin. You've got a very impressive resume with what you've done and what you've coped with. So even though I've only known you that many minutes, it's hats off to you for what you do and doing the kind of stuff we've been doing today. So well done to you.
Oh, thanks, Tony. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Resilience Mindset podcast today. Remember, listeners, until next time, stay resilient.
Building resilience is a key life skill, a skill everyone needs to work at consistently. Life can throw us curveballs, from sickness to job loss, death and no purpose. But it's our inner strength to get back up, navigate the journey of change and build ourselves back up. If you'd like a free 30-minute one-on-one conversation with resilience coach Justine Martin, email yes please to hello@justinemartin.com.au. We hope you enjoyed the Resilience Mindset podcast. Remember to subscribe to the podcast to get your weekly fix listening to Resilience Queen Justine Martin. Follow Justine on social media at Resilience Mindset or log on to justinemartin.com.au. And until next time, remember, life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient.